Hello, everybody. Welcome back to East Coast Haunts. I'm MK.
And I'm Sam.
And we are back to our bread and butter. We're putting the HHN stuff away for right now. And we're going to talk about what is often called the greatest American ghost story. It's a good one.
It is a good one, but greatest American ghost story? It
I
remains to be seen.
I kind of agree slash disagree in the lens that you look at it.
Okay.
And I was just saying to Sam before we started this episode that I believe this one more than say Amityville horror, but that was proven to be a hoax.
That's not saying much because Amityville horror, yeah.
But if you're saying that that's the greatest American ghost story, I might agree with you.
Yeah.
But it's that, it's a story.
Story, yeah.
So maybe this is the greatest American haunting.
That seems to be a little bit more believable than other hauntings.
Yes. I feel like this one's definitely the hardest to disprove, and there's some pretty damning evidence that came out semi recently.
Oh, I don't know if I know about that.
Yeah, it's I mean I hesitate to say damning as evidence, but it's harder to disprove this one because it happened so long ago, and also there's definitely some weird stuff going on the property.
Okay.
But yeah, today we're going to be talking about the Bell Witch
Ooh.
in Tennessee. I would love to visit this place. It seems so cool to me. Oh.
I will tell you a little bit about when people actually visit. I have some hilarious reviews to read you later. It's like a whole saga, but I would also be very curious to visit this place.
We could do a Nashville / Red River
tour, yeah. A nice little southern visit to all the different spooky places in the South.
Oh.
That would take forever though, because there are so many.
Yeah, there's a lot of spooky places in the South. However, I would be down.
Get it on the calendar, folks. 2026.
Spooky road trip.
Spooky road trip down south.
All right, let's get into it.
Yes, let's.
So, first, let me tell you a little bit about the Bell family. It starts with our patriarch, John Bell, who was born in North Carolina in 1750, and his wife, Lucy Williams, later Lucy Bell, who was born in 1768 in Edgecombe County, North Carolina.
Okay, so this is a long time ago.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And John and Lucy married in 1782, their marriage is referred to as a love match. So, I know, which is pretty rare for the time. It was also a good union for the two families, but by all accounts they loved each other.
Aww.
So, I know, very cute. And then they had a ton of children.
Oh, classic.
Their oldest son was Jesse. Then they had John Bell Jr., who was particularly affected by the witch.
Are they gonna be doing that thing where they the Kardashians, where they name all of them with the same first letter?
No.
Okay.
Actually, I was gonna say those are the only two with the J, but it's not. There was Drury, which is a crazy name.
What? Drury?
Drury, Drury Lane.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, Drury. Okay.
Benjamin, who unfortunately died before the family moved to Tennessee.
Aww.
Esther, who was the oldest daughter, and she moved out before the hauntings got intense. Because
Smart
as you
girl.
can see, the hauntings didn't really happen until later, and the kids weren't really true I don't want to say true kids, but they were happening when the kids were 12 years old. They weren't
preteens type of thing. Yeah, they weren't 2 or 3.
Exactly. Which brings us to Betsy, who is one of the younger kids. She's witnessed a ton of the hauntings. She's, I think, the most famous Bell kid.
Okay.
Richard, who later wrote Our Family Trouble, which was a first-hand account of all the paranormal activity that went on, and Joel. And then there were rumors that, or not rumors, but other accounts that said they had more, but those are the ones that definitely actually existed.
These are the ones that mattered. No, I'm just kidding.
So,
Some of those middle kids got forgotten.
you know, there's no way that Drury
Ain't no way that the jury was real.
So anyway, the Bell family, they lived in North Carolina for the first part of their lives, and then they ended up moving to Tennessee in 1804 to the Red River area. They wanted to settle in this area because they had heard that it was good fertile land, good for farming, and they were farmers by trade. So they settled on this 320-acre farm with crops, livestock, and unfortunately, as was typical of the time, a lot of slaves.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say, and unfortunately, ghosts.
Well, that too. Uh, and survival in this area was pretty heavily dependent on the relationships that you made with your neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
So if, you didn't have a certain crop, you better hope that your neighbors have it, and you better hope that you're on good terms with them.
Okay.
And it was a very tightly knit area, and it was very church centered, as was typical of the South at the time. The Red River area in particular was influenced by the Second Great Awakening, which was like a sort of religious revival that was it was inspired, like stirred by like the Enlightenment movement over in
Okay.
Europe, and it kind of just made its way to America.
Okay.
And that actually may have had some effect on the oral legend that was passed around in these large gatherings, because it was the Second Great Awakening happened from 1790 to 1840 roughly, and it was like characteristic of the time to have all of your church sermons like outside in these huge groups, and like you can kind of picture
Yeah.
those big gatherings, and a lot of the entertainment of the time was oral legends passed around at these
parts.
yes, these parties. So local legends say that the Bell property was located on a Native American burial ground,
They
and
always say
actually
that.
but actually in this case artifacts were found to confirm this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there were the slave labor was being heavily used, and these farm hands were out plowing the fields. And they dug up like a ton of arrowheads and tribal pottery in this one area. So they went to go inform John Bell, and Drury was hiding, and he overheard this conversation. He went out to the field in the area that these artifacts were reported to have been found, and he dug up part of a human skull.
Now, Drury, why do we feel the need to do that?
I don't know, but like John Bell apparently got like pretty mad at him and was like, okay, like go put that back.
Yeah.
And it was after this disturbance that the first hauntings began.
That'll do it. I do feel like that'll do it.
It's either like crazy timing or someone was mad.
Of course it was Drury that did it. As soon as he said that name, I knew he was going to be the troublemaker.
You know that John Bell Jr. would never. Esther stays in her lane. And yet, it's always Drury out there stirring up the trouble.
That middle child syndrome. He had to get the attention somehow.
He's like, you know what? Maybe if I bring this human skull to my dad, he'll notice me.
Honestly, all us middle children have been there. Trust.
Oof, can't relate. Sorry.
I know you can't. I know you can't.
So, actually, the Bell family lived on this farm for like a good long while before these hauntings began. So they moved there in 1804. The hauntings didn't start until 1817. So 13 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was not right away.
It was not right away, but it was after this human skull had been dug up and disturbed. So John Bell, who's the father, again, he's walking out on the farm, and all of a sudden he encounters this like crazy weird looking animal. And it has the body of a dog, but the head of a rabbit. So he's like,
okay.
He's like understandably like a little bit stumped. And he takes out his shotgun and he shoots at it, and it just like disappears like that.
So why was his first thought to kill it though? I guess things were different back then. I guess things were different. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's pretty.
It's just a giant rabbit, basically, though. right?
Yeah. Like, that's not super threatening. Like, you can't say it was self-defense. He was probably like
No one's gonna be putting him on trial though.
I can trade this with the neighbors.
Or I can eat this in a
Or I can
stew.
I made stew last night. It was actually pretty good.
So cozy of
Anyway,
you.
I know it was. Okay, so then after this, there was a report of like this large, nondescript bird that was like stalking the property, and like they thought it was a turkey originally, and it was proved not to be a turkey, but they had no idea what it was. So
Oh.
they start to see these like weird animals walking around the property, and they're like, huh, that's a little weird, but
This is kind of weird. This is weird.
they just like bring it up over dinner. They're like, hey, did you see
Y'all,
that
y'all see something?
turkey question mark out there today? Um, and so eventually the weird animals go away, but then the family begins to hear knocking on the doors, the windows, and the exterior walls of their cabin.
That would freak me out and also piss me off simultaneously.
If you disturb my sleep, like it is legitimately on site. It
Yeah.
pisses me off to
It's like
no.
ding dong ditch. And then the
Yes.
dog is awake and the dog is barking and then yeah. And then you're also scared that you have an intruder.
Yeah, no, I would be scared at first, and then when I didn't find anything, I'd be so angry.
Pissed. Yeah.
So this then escalates to scratching and scraping noises in the house,
Mm.
especially under the beds and behind the headboards.
Ooh, that actually I just had some chills from that.
I
Yeah,
hate
behind the
that.
headboard. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
scary.
exactly. Behind the headboard freaks me out.
Ooh. Ooh, okay. I don't like that at
And
all.
then that's
No.
coupled with the sound of heavy chains being dragged along the floor.
It's like a Christmas Carol. It's like Scrooge.
Yes. Yes. Um,
Oh.
and on top of that, then the bed would begin to shake, and once they would get out of bed, they realized that it wasn't the bed that was shaking, it was actually the entire frame of the house.
Wow. I mean,
Yeah.
that could be an earthquake, but
It
the fact
happened,
that it happened
like,
many
nightly.
times, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Then items began disappearing and turning up in, like, weird places, like, they would find, like, cutlery, like, in the bed.
Oh.
Yeah, it was or, like, tools, like, around the house. It was yeah, started to become very weird, and then the spirit got a little bit more bold, and these items began flying across the room, and they began spilling, like, food and drinks in the kitchen, which, again, would piss me off.
I know. You didn't even have like Swiffers back then. They had to manually get on their hands and knees and scrub.
And I'm talking about if someone spilled the stew that I made last night, which, by the way, took me 3.5 hours.
What kind was it? What kind of stew is it?
It was like a red wine beef stew. It was delicious.
Ooh, that does sound really good.
It was
But I know
really
it takes forever, right?
It takes forever. If someone spilled that, I would be so inconceivably angry.
Yeah. Especially when it's
No.
an unseen force and you don't have anyone to yell at.
And also, like, when you're farmers and you're the ones growing the food, and that's your hard-earned, like, cash crop
Yeah.
too. Like, I just had to go to the grocery. I had to Instacart it. And these people are out there, like,
Yeah, this and the fact that it's like these are pretty creative haunts that this
yeah, it's not really
other
like your dime a
doing.
dozen. Like, the
No.
lights flickering. Well, I guess it was the
Like
18th
shaking the
century.
entire bed, like that's kind of fun. Oh yeah, I guess there are no lights to flicker.
Yeah. I was saying that, and then I was like, well, maybe they flicker the candle, but they do that on their own.
Yeah.
Um,
Very true.
so the haunts progress into 1818, and they begin targeting Betsy Bell in particular. And
Okay.
it started while she was sleeping. The spirit would rip the covers and the pillows off her bed, and then, again, shake the frame violently.
Okay.
Then,
Rude.
on top of that, she would be pinched and slapped by an invisible force.
Ooh.
And when her parents came to check on her, because obviously she was like screaming and crying, scratches appeared on her body before their eyes, along with visible handprints. So, like, they would be looking at her, she would react like she was being slapped, and then all of a sudden there was a red handprint on her cheek.
Weird. Very odd.
And also just the fact that it's happening in front of people too, which is another thing about this haunt. Like, it does not shy away when there are visitors in the house.
Which honestly, in a way, is like a good thing because otherwise people are just gonna be like,
They
okay,
wouldn't believe you.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. Granted,
And
this is all in the 1800s, so you can say you saw anything, but
a
still.
lot of, yeah, I saw a dog with the head of a rabbit. And they're like, whoa.
Yeah, okay, John.
Been hitting the absinthe a little too hard there, John.
Yes.
Um, and speaking of John, he began experiencing physical assault and swelling and paralysis of his tongue and throat.
Ooh, I don't like that.
I hate that.
Yeah, that's scary.
I hate that. And then on top of that, the hauntings begin to escalate. So these scrapes become a whistle, and the whistle becomes a whisper, and then the whispers get louder, and soon the family is hearing a clear and distinct female voice, which then begins addressing family members by name and having full conversations with them.
It's interesting how they're I mean, obviously we don't know what they were thinking, but they're kind of just like letting it happen.
Yeah, no, well, what I honestly, what do you do here?
I don't know, especially because like it's not like
It's
today
not just their home,
when
like
you're
it's their business
yeah,
too.
when you're in an apartment and you're like, okay, well, I'm just gonna break the lease. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's their business. It's their home for the last 13 years with their 20,000 children. Yeah, that's rough.
Unfortunately. And like it's not like they can be like, "Oh, well, I'm just going to like rent in the apartment complex down the street." Like they literally built this from the ground
Yeah.
up.
Oh man.
So, tough stuff.
Yeah.
Um and so the voice announces that she is a spirit whose body was buried in the woods nearby that was disturbed, and now she's angry and she's here to
Understandable.
torment John Bell.
And that's
So,
this is the dad, or is this
yes.
John Jr.? Okay.
Yes. And she said eventually she is going to be the cause of his death.
Ooh. Okay.
Yes. So she pretty quickly earns the nickname the Bell Witch. And it was
Makes sense.
originally assumed to be like a practical joke or like something like a trick that Kate Batts, who was Lucy's niece who lived like on an adjacent plot of property, she had recently had a dispute with John over land.
Okay.
And so people were like, "Oh, it's probably just Kate Batts." So they began calling her Kate or Old Kate, which
Okay.
stuck, but it was then it was eventually proved to not be Kate Batts.
Poor Kate. She's like, I was just trying
Yeah.
to get my land back.
Bro's like literally catching strays.
Yeah.
Um
And she's related to them? Like, that's so rude that they're
she's the wife's niece.
yeah,
So
okay.
the voice began to quote scripture and like prompted
Ooh.
theological discussions with the family. So the family's like, okay,
Interesting.
what is going on? And
What's the
they,
goal?
what'd you say?
I said, "What's the goal?"
What is the end goal here?
Yeah.
Uh, but they eventually were like driven to share it with the neighbors. So the
Okay.
first night that the spirit spoke out loud and introduced itself as like the witch, there were 24 people in the kitchen that witnessed it.
Oh, that's a lot of people in the kitchen.
So the family kept inviting people in, like anyone who wanted to try and make contact with the witch was welcome. Witch hunters came from all up and down the coast to, either try to banish it or whatever. And it definitely would kind of like play with them because at first it would kind of like act subdued, like the objects would stop flying, the voice wouldn't answer as much, and then it would drive them away like screaming.
I kinda love
Um,
that.
I kind of love it too.
I actually kinda like her so far.
Dude, she's kind of an icon.
Yeah.
Um, and ministers were among like some of the first visitors to the house that tried to make contact with it, and the voice would engage in like lively religious debates with them.
Oh my god, that's so funny.
And like I said before, like this is not one of those ghosts that shy away from attention, and she did not respond well to attempts to banish her. She would literally like mock people and, make jokes at their expense.
Well, she was there first, right?
Yeah, I
They
mean,
disturbed her.
this is her property,
Yeah,
supposedly. So
allegedly.
she would, at like random points in the night and day, sing hymns super loudly. And she would alternate between like a genuine, like nice singing voice and like a mocking tone. And she'd be like singing these church hymns that no one had ever heard before. So she was either like making them up or like, I don't
Or
know,
going to
doing
really
her time.
obscure yeah.
And then once the family invited two different ministers over like separately on the same day. And when both of the ministers entered, she began quoting both of their sermons that they had given earlier in the day, 13 miles apart, like word for word.
That's
So,
crazy.
isn't that weird? So there was
Yeah.
no possible way that like one person could be doing this because they
Right.
would have had to be in two places at once. So, and it was
Yeah.
like word for word that
This
they,
is
and
weird.
then she got really good at mimicking voices of people in the family and neighbors and
Oh no.
eventually these ministers, and she would communicate to like other family members in super long distances in mimicked voices. So there was one like witch hunter that came to stay, and he would pass messages back and forth between his family through the witch, and he would receive messages from his mother in his mother's voice.
What was the mother dead or was the
No,
mother
the
alive?
mother was alive, just sending messages through the witch.
What?
I know.
Oh, so the witch was kind of helpful.
Yeah, actually, my next like section in my notes is titled "Oddly Helpful at Times."
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and so, but also she had like this horrible habit of like eavesdropping on the Bell family's private conversations, and then like when people would come over, she'd be like, "Did you know?" And she'd like air their dirty laundry.
Honestly, that would kind of be a pain to live with, but also if I were a witch or a ghost, like I would also use it for that reason.
You have to entertain yourself for eternity somehow,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Um, and there was one specific slave who lived on the farm. His name was Dean, and he was gifted to John and Lucy as a wedding gift, which is like
That's so
so
messed up.
so fucked up.
Disturbing.
Um, but he was particularly tormented by the witch, and he would see these like huge black dogs on the property, which is obviously like an omen.
Yeah.
Um, and one time he was followed by this dog and she was taunting him in the witch's voice, and he took an axe and he split the dog's head in two and then just went about his merry way. And the next time he saw the black dog, it had two heads. Yeah.
Like the Hydra,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Oh my god.
So yes, this thing was very creepy, definitely had a lot of
Forms?
yes, it appeared in a lot of different ways, and there's a lot of like really weird stories that pop up. But like I said before, she's oddly helpful at times. So the family had livestock in their barn, and at one point there was a calf, like a baby cow that got injured, and the family was alerted to the calf's need for help because this was like in the early hours of the morning, so they weren't checking on the livestock
Right.
when there was an incessant banging from inside the barn, like on the walls of the barn. So the family ran inside to see what was happening, and they saw that the calf needed help,
Okay.
and they were able to like attend to it. It probably would have died
Yeah,
otherwise.
no one would have known that anything was wrong.
Exactly. She would also warn the family of like incoming inclement weather or dangers on the farm so that they could prepare in advance.
Wow, that was very
Yeah.
sweet.
Kind of nice. She definitely had her favorites in the family, I will say, and she
That's
definitely had the
funny.
people that she did not like. So she didn't like Betsy, and
Okay.
she would constantly like torment her physically and also like berate her emotionally. And then when Betsy grew up, she got engaged to this man named Joshua Gardner. And it was like a childhood friend, and they would hang out all the time on the farm as you do with your betrothed in the
Of course.
1800s.
Of course.
And the voice would follow her around and be like, "Don't marry him. You're going to have a miserable life if you marry him." And she was
Oh
like,
my god. Wait, but what if she was just trying to warn her?
"Well, I'll tell you what happened to Betsy."
Okay.
But she would also like in order to like get them to stop hanging out, she would like say these like obscene things,
Oh my god.
like
Which
suggestive things, and like obviously back in the 1800s
that was a
it was
big no-no.
horrifying to hear if you're like with your betrothed. Um
Oh no.
and so she eventually did break it off with this guy, uh and she ended up getting engaged and married to someone else who was previously her school teacher. So, hate that.
Oh, that's not.
Yeah, she had 4 kids, and all of her 4 kids died, which is really sad.
Oh, that's so sad.
She was widowed for 30 years. So her husband died, like, pretty soon after they got married, and then she lived for another 30 years.
Oh my god.
And then she invested all of her money in, like, this basically, like, Titanic-esque ship,
Oh
and
no.
it sank, and
Okay,
she
so
lost
she did not
all of
have
her money. Yeah.
the best luck.
No. And that was in 1821 that the witch told her to break up with her boyfriend.
Yeah.
Um, and once she did call it off, the witch said that she would return in 7 years, and I'll get to that a little bit later. But
Okay.
so also there was another point I mentioned earlier that the witch had favorites. Lucy, the mother, was one of her favorites. It
Okay.
used to praise her for being virtuous in character, and it would call her, quote, the finest woman to ever walk the earth. So big fan of Lucy Bell.
All right.
Let's hear it for Lucy.
I know I was gonna say, are we sure Lucy wasn't behind all this?
She was like, yes, you guys take it easy on your mother.
She's like, you're the hottest, sexiest person I've ever seen in my
You're a
life.
hot wife.
You're a MILF.
John Bell, you should probably pick up dinner on the way home tonight because I know Lucy doesn't feel like cooking.
That would be genius. That would actually be genius.
So speaking of cooking and eating, she was sick one time and everyone thought she was gonna die. And because she just would not eat at all. And the voice seemed very like attentive to her needs. Like it would instruct
Oh,
family members like what to get her so that she would be the most comfortable she could be.
okay.
And she wouldn't eat anything that they brought to her. So, and there were like several witnesses to this. One day, hazelnuts and grapes started raining from the ceiling
That's a
above her
random
bed.
pairing.
Yeah, crazy pairing, but she ate them. She was able to like choke a few down, and like a few days later, she was like miraculously cured. So,
What is going on?
very weird stuff. And
This
like
is so random.
the ceiling slash roof of that area of the house was inspected, and there was like no way that they could have like pulled that.
This is literally the most random thing I've ever heard.
Like, unless
Grapes
like
and hazelnuts?
Drury was like standing in the corner of the room, like chucking hazelnuts and grapes
Yeah.
in his mom's bed.
Yeah,
Like, I have
exactly.
no idea how you would explain
Which I
this.
would not put it past him, but like that is so bizarre.
I know,
I'm glad she
very
got better
weird
though.
story. Yeah, I know. So she was chilling. Eventually in 1819, the legend of the Bell Witch drew the attention of one Andrew Jackson.
Oh dear God.
Yes, we have discussed actually, I think, on this podcast how
Yeah.
much we despise him, but
Yeah, he's not a good person. To put it
no,
lightly.
he's actually a gigantic fuck. But anyway, um, he was like, I hate that this story makes him more relatable, but it does. So he and his
Okay.
like friends, I like to imagine them as like his college friends. Like they got like this giant wagon and they were like, let's pack up provisions and like camping supplies and we'll go and we're gonna investigate the Bell Witch.
Okay.
And I believe Andrew Jackson was friends with John Bell Jr. because they had like fought in the war together.
Okay.
Um and so they're like on their way there, they're like drinking, whatever, they're getting ready to investigate the Bell Witch, and all of a sudden their carriage like wouldn't move, like it got stuck.
Yeah.
And so they like everyone got out of the carriage and they were like pushing, 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 wouldn't move, wouldn't move. And all of a sudden they're still like miles out from the house at this point. The witch's voice came upon them all and was like, I'll see you later tonight. And
Oh.
then the carriage started moving again.
Oh.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So
So interesting.
So for lols, Andrew Jackson brought like this supposed witch hunter. So it was like all of Andrew Jackson's friends, Andrew Jackson, and then a witch hunter, like a supposed witch hunter.
This is a crazy group.
It's a crazy group, and they're all like sitting in the kitchen. And one of Andrew Jackson's friends is like, "Okay, like I bet this guy's a fraud." And the Bell Witch like comes into the kitchen. She's like, she's like, "You're a coward and I'm gonna prove it." So she like smacks the witch hunter across the face.
Yes.
And he had brought a gun loaded with silver bullets because apparently that's how you kill a witch. And
Mhm.
like shot in the direction of where the slap came from, and he missed. And the Bell Witch was like, "Okay, my turn," and
My thorn.
like started him like actually dragging him around the room by his like abnormally large nose. And
Oh!
like kicked him out of the house, like actually like punted him out of the house.
So when this happens, does it just look like nothing? It's like he's
Yes,
moving by himself?
supposedly, yes.
That is so funny.
And he went running away and like they never saw him again. So,
Good.
yeah.
Wow.
Anyway,
Andrew Jackson.
yeah. So crazy stuff.
I wish she had done that to him.
I know I was literally about to say too bad she didn't call him the coward. Uh
2-for-1 deal. Wow, this is okay. Everything she does, it's like each person that she has an interaction with, she does something different to each of them.
yeah, it's not like I feel like it's not a one size fits all encounter, you know? She
Yeah.
personalizes it. She takes the time. She'll speak in your relative's voice if you want her to.
Yeah, she'll sometimes be. I guess you just have to get on her, try and get on her good side.
Exactly. Like she'll set you out some snacks, a little charcuterie board,
Yeah,
hazelnuts and grapes.
hazelnut. Yeah, it's kind of a bougie little board, actually.
However, you don't want to be on her bad side. That's the perfect segue.
True.
Um,
True.
in 1820, she fulfilled her original promise to kill John Bell, or she called him Old Jack.
Oh, I like
So
that nickname.
John Bell goes out for a walk on the property and he starts having something that's like akin to a seizure, but he like falls to the ground and his shoes like fly off in different directions. So it's very clearly something paranormal is going
Yeah.
on. So they bring him back into the house. He's still under this paranormal influence, and his son, I believe it was John Bell Jr., goes to the medicine cabinet to get medicine, and he opens it up and there's just a singular vial of black liquid that none of them had ever seen before. All of the medicine's gone. It's just an empty cabinet with a vial of black liquid sitting in there.
John Bell
So
Jr., don't give him that. JBJ, don't do it.
so
Or do
JBJ
it.
is like JBJ is like, "What the heck is this?" And the entity comes over and she voices and she says, "Oh, I gave old Jack a big dose of that last night, which fixed him."
Oh,
John Bell dies.
hey,
So,
what does that mean?
fixed him, I guess, like, fixed him right off this mortal coil.
She neutered him?
Fixed him is like a strange way to say, murdered him in cold blood.
I done him in.
But I did done him in. So
Fair enough.
they, being the wise people that they are, they're like, well, let's test the black liquid that killed Dad.
What could possibly go wrong?
They test it on a barn cat. So they bring like,
What I mean.
one of the cats that are inside and they put like a little drop on its tongue and it literally immediately dies.
Ooh.
So they're like,
Okay, so
yeah. So
where
they're
did
like,
it go from
okay,
here?
clearly not a cure-all. And the spirit was weirdly quiet at John's funeral, which was like widely attended. It was like a huge funeral.
Of course,
But
yes.
at the repast, it started singing like sea shanty type songs.
Kinda fun.
Yeah, right? Like I mean everyone's drinking at a repast anyway. And
Yeah, like, may as well try to bring the mood up a little bit.
yeah, exactly. But it started at the repast and didn't stop until everyone went home.
Oh,
So,
she was
yeah.
performing. She was literally just performing.
Listen, she said karaoke night.
To be a woman is to perform. Wait, it's like obviously it's not funny that he died, but it's a little bit funny how she had this grudge like specifically against him.
I want to know what he did. Like
I know.
why-
You know there is something sketchy he did in the past that she
Totally. No,
just saying.
totally. Um, so the spirit, like I said, after Betsy Bell broke off her engagement in 1821, she said that she would go away for 7 years, and she did.
Okay.
But she returned in 1828, and she interacted with John Bell Jr.
Okay.
And this is so weird, but she predicted a bunch of like future events, and then just left again. So she predicted the Civil War, World War One, World War Two, the Great Depression, and then she predicted a quote fiery end to the world.
Oh shoot.
So
Well, that's
yeah,
not good because all the other things happened.
yeah, so
So
not great.
we are
Um,
pretty much screwed.
we are not looking good. Um, and there were reports of her coming back from time to time, uh, to visit the area, but there was nothing like substantial after that,
Okay, wow.
except for in the cave on the property. So in 1993, the property, the Bell family farm, was sold to a couple who were trying to start a tobacco farm,
Okay.
and they immediately started getting the hauntings like over and over again, like the banging on the walls, the scraping, the
Yeah, the
talking.
Bell Witch is probably like, who are you?
So the couple has a psychic come to the farm, and the psychic detects that the focal point of the paranormal energy is this cave on the property, and it's been examined by, um paranormal experts, and they say that it is like actually a portal.
Oh.
At one point, a video camera was placed inside the cave, and there's footage of a door appearing, two women walking out, and then the door disappearing.
Let me see that footage.
I have not seen it. I don't know if it's like available on the internet, but there's supposed uh
What?
yeah, I know,
So
it's
when they say a
crazy.
portal, it's like a literal portal. It's a
Like,
door.
yes, like a literal portal to the other side. And, obviously you have to sign a waiver when you visit this cave and say like I won't take anything, I won't disrespect anything, because apparently a woman took a rock from the cave and then was haunted and died under mysterious
Oh.
circumstances.
Well, I
Like,
do feel like that's like rule number one. Like, if you're gonna go somewhere
do
haunted,
not
like,
take stuff
why
from a
would you
haunted
even want
place.
to? Why would you even want to take anything?
I don't know. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much the story of the Bell Witch up until this point. So,
So it's very interesting to me that it was like, almost like she was almost like dormant for however many years, and then she came
yeah, like
back.
7 years, and then she came back.
Um, I also think it's interesting, like we were saying before, just how varied her methods of haunting were. Like,
Yeah,
right?
you're creative.
Very creative. So
Yeah.
you talked about the history and the haunts. I'm going to tell you about the actual place itself, the actual Bell Witch Cave and like the surrounding area. Um,
Okay, before you do, I
yes.
did just Google very quickly, why did the Bell Witch hate John Bell so much? And apparently there was like some sketchy dealings in John Bell's past.
Okay.
Apparently John Bell did cheat that Kate Batts out of a land or slave transaction, which led her to place a curse on him.
Oh,
Um,
which led Kate to place a curse on him?
yes, supposedly,
Okay.
yes. And then people were saying that the haunting of the Bell Witch, in the context of the Second Great Awakening, could have been punishment for John Bell's sins, which apparently he had made some unethical dealings in the past.
Well, he's also a slave owner, so he's got a
Well,
lot of unethical dealings
yeah,
to what's the word? Repent for.
yes. And then of course there's always the mass hysteria, mass hallucination theory as well. But
Yeah, if there was any,
that's
yeah, but that
so
would be a lot. That would
boring.
be a lot of people, though. I mean,
It's
like,
hundreds of people saw this or heard this witch.
and like it's like very specific. Like it was just that would be really specific.
I agree. Weird.
Um, so yeah, so I don't know. Honestly, I don't know if I necessarily like. I don't know how to feel about this case. Like, part of me is kind of like it's so easy to have those stories from like the 1800s because like there's literally you can't take photos or videos.
You can't, like, I think about that all the time actually too. I'm like, how did like any true crime cases ever get solved before like
I don't
footage,
know.
like
I guess they
security
just
footage?
were. I don't know. It's crazy. It's crazy and stuff like this where I'm just like, I can only take everything with like a grain of salt because it's like, oh yeah, 40 people saw it. Did they though? You're
Who are
telling
these 40 people and can I talk to them, please?
yes, and like also I just feel like
Did they
who
all have
knows?
the same story? Did it
And also,
line?
did the Bell Witch did the Bells like monetize this at all? I mean, obviously the
No,
one
they
guy wrote
didn't, which
a
is
book.
weird.
Okay, so that is interesting that they didn't monetize it.
Yes.
That's like a
They were,
little.
I think, pretty well off though. Like, I don't think they needed to monetize it, but it is very odd that they really didn't, like, they weren't charging people to spend the night at their house. They were just like, if you want to like come investigate it, you can.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It was like an open door policy. Like, okay.
Exactly.
I'd be very interested to see the video of the portal appearing. That would convince me.
Yeah, I
Maybe.
wonder if that's a thing.
Um, while you look that up, let me get started telling you about the actual Bell Witch Cave itself because yes, this is somewhere that you yourself can go visit if you would like to. I also just realized I'm talking so loud. I need to relax a little bit. I like heard my voice echo in the room. All right, so the Bell Witch Cave, it's got 4.1 stars on Google, which is a pretty good
Ooh.
rating. Not, I mean, like I would think twice about going to a restaurant with a 4.1 star rating, but for an activity, I'm like, okay, like,
Would you?
I would say 4.3 and up for me is good.
I
For
agree.
for 3.9 to 4.2 is safe, but like I would still like think about
Yeah,
it
I
for
I
a
don't think
second.
I would go anything less than 3.9.
And I would have to like, look at the reviews to see like what the issue was. Like if it was like that it was dirty, like no.
Oh, no, thank
If it
you.
was that it was bad service, maybe I would go.
Yeah, that I wouldn't care as much about, to be honest with you. Anyway, that's
Um so people kind of seem to like love the Bell Witch Cave or hate it like as an excursion. My favorite review personally, just to sum everything up before we get into the details, said, quote, drove from Knoxville to see this cave. Upon arrival, the gate was locked. I called the number for delivery drivers and was told the cave had been closed for 2 years. I told the proprietor that he needs to update the website ASAP. So lame. Sad face. But she spelled out sad face. Wasted 4 hours driving here. So I honestly just feel bad for the person that wrote this review.
sucks.
Because, like, the worst feeling was when you go to, like, a restaurant and it's, like, a Monday and you realize it's closed. Imagine
Oh,
driving 8 hours round trip, because you thought this was gonna be open and you realized it had been closed for 2 years. So all of this is to
that
say,
sucks.
the vast majority of the, bad reviews are from pre new management. So there was, like, a 2
Okay.
years in between where it was unmanaged, I guess.
Bell
Um
Witch under new management.
Exactly. So, and a lot of the answers on the Google reviews are like, "Sorry about that, but we are under new management now." So I was like, "Okay." So,
They're out there
um,
doing some PR.
so
Can't
yeah.
blame
So this is when they had their old management. Um, there was a review that said where a visitor was talking about how they got the Bell Witch tour from a 10-year-old, um, who quote seemed totally disinterested in the folklore. This is a 10-year-old. Like she's literally like illegally working. Like, and so apparently it was the granddaughter of the owner. Either way, I just thought that was so funny. I was like,
it.
imagine like your tour guide is a 10-year-old and your biggest like critique is like, oh, she didn't seem interested in the folklore.
Dude, this is a 10-year-old we're talking about. They have the attention span of literally a
And
goldfish.
she should probably also like be at school or something. I don't know. There is a little bit of lore. There is a super rude old man who is mentioned so many times in the reviews. Um, so the reviews from like 7 to 10 years ago, like literally almost every review is talking about this old man in overalls and how he is the owner and he was like so rude to people and he would get like so annoyed when people would come for like tours and stuff and he'll just like randomly decide like depending on the weather he'd be like it's closed and they'd be like but we came here from like 5 hours away he's like it's closed. um So I just kind of thought that was hilarious. Anyway, the recent reviews are way better. So I just thought that was interesting. Don't let this deter you from going, but
The
apparently
old man in the
7 to 10
overalls
years ago
can't
they were
hurt
kind of
you.
like they were in the old man in the overalls, he's not real, he can't hurt you.
He can't hurt you anymore.
So apparently, the cave itself is a little bit treacherous, which is
Ooh.
probably partly why you have to sign that waiver that you were just talking about.
Like,
Um, like there's like the stalagmites and the stalactites,
yeah, you
which is
know,
like the rocks coming from like above and below that are like look super pointy. Um,
the
it,
waivers cover slips, trips, and falls, but also like possession by paranormal
yeah,
demons.
they
So
have they have to they have to
they have to
cover
cover
every
their all
basis.
bases. Yeah.
It's like it's just it's a legal thing.
Yeah.
You wouldn't
You wouldn't
understand.
understand.
That was so weird.
So weird.
So the cave is actually like beautiful. It's kind of
Yeah.
scary looking, but it's also very pretty in a way. It kind of reminded me like years ago, my family and I went on a cruise and we were in I think it was Cozumel, Mexico, and it kind of looked like a cave from there that we got to see, which was very cool. I was like, wow, it's crazy that this is just like in Tennessee, right?
Sure.
Um, I was like, okay. So the cave itself is about 490 feet long, and which I
490 feet long.
yeah, I guess that's like not that big, right? It's pretty small.
No, that's like a football field and a half.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know anything. Okay, so then I guess that's huge. I was picturing it way smaller for some reason.
Wait, 490 feet.
Yes, it says yes,
Yeah,
according
that's
to
like a
my
football
notes.
field and a half.
Wow. Really?
I think so.
Okay, I
Unless
think
I'm doing my math
I'm
wrong.
thinking of square feet. I'm thinking of square feet, which is
Oh.
simply not the same thing. So we're just gonna skim right past that. Um, So actually, the cave itself, it does rest on the old Bell Farm property, and it's not too far away from like the original cabin where the family lived. But the original cabin isn't actually there anymore, and it's like
Mhm.
it's a uh,
Boo.
like a new version, like a reconstructed version or whatever.
Okay.
Um, and they don't really know if that's because the cabin was destroyed over time or if it was like abandoned and just kind of like got dilapidated. Um, but the reconstructed version is sometimes included on tours, and it's just meant to give like a sense of what the actual cabin would have looked like back in the day.
Do you
Um,
think that the 10-year-old do you think you have a better chance of getting the tour of the new cabin from the 10-year-old or the man in the overalls?
10-year-old for sure,
Okay.
because if we think about it, the 10-year-old is now like 20 probably,
Okay,
and
okay.
if she can legally work there, maybe she owns it. Like maybe
Maybe
she
she's more interested in the folklore now. I mean, I would
yeah,
hope
she's
so,
not
oh my
a
god.
disinterested 10-year-old. She has no idea how lucky
It was
she was.
just a phase.
Like imagine like being born into like an empire, but like the empire is like the tours of the cave. Like that's kind of sick. Like I would actually appreciate that.
The family business is cave tours.
Family
The
business in
cave is
question.
haunted.
Bell Witch cave tours. Um and so I was looking on Reddit and a lot of people don't think that the cave is haunted because they were all saying like it literally has nothing to do with the Bell Witch. But that was like I was reading that and I didn't know the part about how like they allegedly saw two women walking out of the cave or
Awful.
whatever. So I'm like, if that's true, then it's definitely part of
It's
the
got a
lore.
little bit of lore, I would
But
think.
on Reddit, so many people were saying that they were like, this is BS and it's like a cash grab. Um, so I don't know. I'm so easily swayed by others' opinions with like with haunting stuff and just in general. So I'm like I'm not really sure how I feel about any of this. I think it's a very entertaining story. And like you said, like if I was in the area or even if I was like a couple hours away, I was after I made sure it was open, I would absolutely make the drive down.
Guys, call ahead.
Seriously, call ahead.
I what I am hearing though is that we need to go on a haunted road trip. We can do St. Augustine, Florida. We can do Charleston. We can do
Louisiana.
Yes, we can do New Orleans. We can
NOLA.
Goals Rainbow Room in Nashville. We
Yeah.
can do and we can end at the Bell Witch.
And the best part is it can be a tax write-off, you know?
This is our family
This
business.
is yeah, this is the
People
family
forget that
that
East Coast hunts,
our kids
family
are
business.
our kids are gonna be so happy and not disinterested what they're
They're
giving
gonna be
tours.
really interested.
Just saying. They'll take after the
Um,
mothers and not the man in the overalls. Ray and Zach will become the old men in the overalls.
we're closed. This game is on.
Yeah, we're closed.
Sorry, guys, but we're not open on Sundays, especially during football season.
Literally, go
Literally,
Eagle, fly Eagles fly.
fly, Eagles, fly.
So that's the Bell Witch cave. I almost always say Bell Witch Project. I know it's not that. I'm thinking
Yeah,
of the
no,
Blair
no,
Witch
no.
Project.
I was calling it that earlier too because it's like the Blair Witch
Yeah,
Project, Bell
the Bell
Witch.
Witch Project. It kind of sounds nice. Kind of sounds catchy.
Yeah, you know, the Bell Witch Project. That's what we'll call our like investigation when we go there.
Oh, I like that. Oh, I very much like that. I bet
With
it's taken. I'm sure someone else has done it.
I'm sure it has.
It's too
I'm
clever.
well, I mean, like the paranormal community is not huge.
I beg to differ.
Well, that's super exciting news we have for you guys is that we might have, a firsthand visit coming up soon.
Yeah.
So we'll be on the scene, boots on the ground.
Of something crazy in New Jersey, and that's your only hint.
That's your only hint, sorry. But
Chloe.
I do have to say, out of like all of the states, and I might be biased because I'm from New Jersey, of all the states, I feel like Jersey has some of the best haunts. Like the
I
closer you
agree.
go,
I agree because it's one of the states with like, it was settled earlier, right?
yeah.
Like not as many as like Massachusetts and like Connecticut and etc. But
Well, like a lot of them are recent haunts, like recent-ish haunts. Like we were talking about
yeah, the Watcher.
The Watcher, John List,
Yeah.
Clinton Road had the mafia tie.
Oh yeah,
Um,
there's a
yeah,
lot.
right? Uh, obviously the Pine Barrens. That was like our second ever episode.
Oh, one of the best.
Good
Literally one
episode.
of the best
That was a good
episodes.
episode.
I wonder
Anyway,
if they ever found out. Remember when we covered the Pine Barrens? There was that.
the couple that was murdered.
Yeah,
Yes.
or that died, but we don't know. Like they died, but they didn't know if it was
It was like
murder.
weird circumstances, yeah.
Yeah, I'd be
Sorry, I
curious.
didn't mean to speculate.
I'd be curious to relook into that and see if there's any updates because it's been like what 2 years, three
Yeah.
years, 2 years. Yeah.
2 years, yeah. So we'll have an update for you guys next time.
Yes. Yes, we will.
Until next time,
We're just two ghouls,
keeping it wheel.
and we'll see you real soon.
See you. Bye.
Bye.